Hi everyone. Okay, let's continue then with our mini map. And now we're going to finalize the widget together. Okay, hope you're finding it easy to follow. So by doing this, this icon here, we can have a representative on our map of our first person. Okay, and as we discussed in the first section of this chapter, that we'll be able to navigate, and we'll use the correct proportions as well that relate to the actual size of our model. Okay, so now that we set all that side up, we can now conclude with the final part. And we can use these variables as well here that we created in future projects because they're all customizable, which is really cool. Okay, and then in the widget, as we did in the last class, we made the binds for the image so that we can make it work with any size that we want. And you can also adjust the opacity as well. Okay, and we were creating functions, if you remember, as well, so we could find out the scale of our plan, of our mini map, so then we could begin to move our icon. Okay, and here we talked about target points as well, didn't we? Which are references that we created to be able to calculate the distances and the total height and width of our project. Keep in mind though that the target point should always be on the edges, okay? On the edges of your plan. And in our case, it's more of a square shape, isn't it? But if you've got more unequal sides, basically a nonagon or a pentagon, not four-sided, then just bear in mind you need to make sure you're taking it from the furthest point. Okay, so that's how target points work. We've stored the positions of target points and they were purely references for us. Then we calculated the range, which is the distance between the coordinates, the target points in X and Y. And then we calculated the scale factor between the real world and our plan, our minimap. Okay, so that was last class, and over here, this is where we finished off. So now we'll create the movement of our icon. Okay, so how do we go about doing that? Well, this is a really cool part. Okay, and I know you're going to find this section enjoyable. So we'll work with a function that will get the position of our first person, and it's going to relate to the proportions of our plan, okay, that we calculated. So it's going to be in the correct proportion on the map visually, and it'll move around at the same time as our first person. Okay, so if we think that we have a point here, don't we? Which is hard sometimes to get. So this point is at a coordinate of -700 and -320. But let's suppose it's on a coordinate 0 by 0 here in our axis, our center. Here we'll put this coordinate to represent this coordinate here, okay? Represent that. And then this other coordinate will represent the other corner. So if the character, the first person, is here, it will have a coordinate related to this point in Y and X. So it will have a coordinate related to its distance, okay? So this distance and this distance, okay? And then we'll transport the icon to the same coordinate here, but with a distance that's proportionate or proportional to our scale factor. So that's how we'll work. So let's go back to our whiteboard. And we calculated our scale factors, didn't we? In the last class, we calculated the scale factors in X and Y. Now we must deal with this part, okay, which is doing a relatively simple calculation. We need to get this distance and multiply it by a scale factor. So let's suppose my character is just here, this little dot, and there I am. So it's located at a distance of, let's say, 70 and 30 from the top. Okay, so let's suppose that's the distance and the location. So this is the distance from here to here. Okay, in the real world, it's 30. So how much, or what would be the scale factor? Well, in our case, it's 30 times 0.1. okay, which equals 3. So if we're doing a mini-map, it would be at 3 in the distance. And here we'll do the same thing, 70 times 0.1, which equals 7. So the distance here is 7, right? So to represent a point in the real world, in the mini-map, I need to apply the scalar factor both in x and y to place it here. So the first thing we need to do is find out the coordinates for where our character is and what is the distance of it in relation to our plan. So before anything, there is a really important bit of detail that Unreal helps us with, and that's the position of our minimap. You see, it's here in the upper right corner, isn't it? Okay, so that's how it's positioned. Now, it seems quite large here, and I place our anchor on the upper right corner too. So let's work on an example here, and I'll place a character or the character at 0 in the world. And let's suppose I want to walk around, okay? So this is our 0 point here. So if I want to move to the left, what's going to happen? If I want to move to the left, then I have to walk to a negative position, right? So it goes minus, doesn't it, along the x-axis, okay? And here, if I want to move down, then I need to go in a positive direction on the y-axis. So my origin in our widget is here in the top right corner. So why is that? Well, that's because of how we built our widget. Let's suppose you want to place your minimap on the lower right corner, for example. What would you need to do then? Well, your origin would be on the lower right corner if you anchored it to the bottom right. So these will give us different origin points depending on where the anchor is. Okay, so it's just something to bear in mind, especially when we start putting our icon in the map. So here now I've put it down at the bottom right, the positions change, right? I think it's a little higher as well because of the size of the content, but the y is going negative now, and the x too, because the relation is now from the bottom right. Okay, so depending on where you put your map, you just have to understand how the movement works. Okay, where it's anchored to, and whether you're moving negative or positive, and along which axes. So just put it back for now. So our measurement is going to start counting from here. So this is our 0 point. It's just really important to remember that, okay? So in our whiteboard, let's just think about this here as our corner point, our starting point. So the position of our character should be related to this, or in relation to that, right? So let's suppose this is 70 and this is 30. So the distance here is 30. So if I multiply this by the scale factor, yes, it will be 3. 30 times 0.1 is 3. And then since my origin on the minimap is here too, I have to move 3 pixels to the left. And if I want it to be positioned here, that's what I need to do, right? So hopefully you get the idea there. So it's increasing from here to here, and this will be a distance of minus 3. Okay, so because we're moving along this way, when that happens, you see it's negative, right? Moving left. And our position in Y, well, that's going to be the same. That won't change because it's just going down, isn't it? But positive. Okay, so let's work this out and figure out where we'll start our character. So we need to know the distance to the origin. So we've decided that, worked out our origin is in the top right corner. So from this point, y and x coordinates will be related to the origin. This distance would be coordinate x for the first person minus the origin. So let's do this together in a way that will make it easier to understand. You notice we already have some calculations in our widget blueprint. Let's do the rest of it down here, okay? And I'm going to show you a really interesting trick as well. So we've got our origin point. We need to get the coordinates that are in relation to it. So the y coordinates will be related to this point. So let's show you in practice what we can do, okay? Let's jump back into Unreal. So this is the trick, which I think you'll find quite useful, okay? So to make the building of our blueprint a little easier, I recommend we do this. And I'm going to split this calculation in two, and I'll call this calculation scale, and then I'll apply this to the rest of the function so I can put our icon in the right position. So to do so, I'm going to create a function, okay? And I might have done it before. I can't remember now, but let's do it together. I'll create a function and call it scaling. What's scaling? Well, it's creating a new customized node, okay? Like creating a customized node in the blueprint. And now in this node, I need to have some inputs and I also need to have some outputs. That means I'm going to create some inputs so I can develop the calculations, and then it's going to give me an output, which is pretty much what all function nodes do, isn't it really? They get information, the inputs, they calculate them in the function, and then when they've done that, it gives us the result in the output, right? So what would be the inputs? Well, I need to know the position of the actor, don't I? And in our whiteboard, we need the position of the actor as well, don't we? So we can then get the measurements, and we've already set up our target points, so we've got them here. So I'll make this actor position as an input. And then, you know, I'm sure at the moment, if you're confused, don't worry, you'll understand in a moment. So I need to get the actor location, okay? So let's just pull this open, and I'll change this to a vector. So I use a 2D vector because I only need the X and the Y coordinates. I don't need Z. It's not going to be a 3D element, is it? So I've created an input, and then I'll do my calculations just after that, okay? And I'll get an output, which is the position of the icon on the minimap. So I'll create an output here and a 2D vector, and I'll name it icon location, okay, which is a X and Y coordinate. Perfect. So let's sort this out now. So the first thing I need to do is I'll get the location, which is the position of my actor, and I'll do it separately for X and Y. And I'll get my actor position, and I will subtract it from the original position. So what's the origin? The one in the X here, right? Okay, so where is the X coordinate from the origin? Well, here it's in our lower target point with X and Y. So I only want X from it. It's in the lower right section. So I'll get the lower right position, get that. I'll split it because I only want the X coordinate. I'll subtract the lower right position from this. Okay, it's in reverse here, isn't it? So this is the X position of my actor. And okay, awesome. So although the widget origin is here, the values go from left to right here. Okay, so they come from here to here. So to know the distance, I'll need to get the position of my lower minus this position. Okay, so it'll give me this position, which I'll add to our widget. And then here I have a position in X, and that's from the target point minus the actor position. And then I'll multiply it by my scale factor in X. Then multiply. Okay, plug into that, which is the scale factor in X. There we go, which is already a variable, and we'll apply all of this to my position in X. Very nice, keep it tidy. So we have an output here. And I'll do the same thing for Y, but now I'll use my upper left hand location, okay? Because it's my Y coordinate. It's all coming together nicely. Okay, that's the Y coordinate there. The origin's here, and it will increase from here to here. Okay, so I'll get the position minus the origin. Now it's the other way around. I'll split this, and we're going to use the Y, get the position minus the origin. Okay, cool. Move them over here. All right, so then I'll multiply this by the scale factor in Y. Add this here. There we go. Cool. Right, so I've created a function for getting the actor position, and doing these calculations like this gives me the position in quite a straightforward way. So let's go on to the next step. What do we need to do now? Well, we need to get the actor position, don't we? So how do we do that? Well, we click on this and get player character. There we go. So now that means I've got a reference for the actor, and we'll work with a node called get actor location. You've seen this one before. Get actor location. There we go. And I'll apply this to the function that we've created. And the function will be brought in here, and I'll add this to it. Nice. So the orange vector is for 3 coordinates, which are the X, Y, and Z coordinates. So if I link this, it will get X and Y only. Okay. A nice little feature there. Quite handy for us. All right. So what do we need to do next? Well, the coordinates of the actor will be the input, and as the output, I'll get the widget coordinates with all of those calculations. Then I'll transport this position to my icon. Okay. So what is the icon? This is the icon. Okay. There we go. First person. I'll get that and set up its position. So I'll use these formations as if I was altering X and Y here. Okay. And if I'm doing this, then I'm changing my slot. Okay. So before accessing the image, I have to access its slot to get the position. It's a trait for this kind of object. So I can come to slot and slot as canvas slots. So it's going to perform a conversion for us. Then I can set up the position. Okay. So I can get the coordinate I have here. There you go, connect that. Just compile, save. Great. Okay, all right now. So this is nothing to be started by. So I need to add an initial event to get this going. So I can just come here to event construct, because it's gonna get things going through there anyway when I build the widget. And it's going to be updating the icon's position at all times. So when I move around with the character, it should update the position on the map as well. So what's the function that creates this? Well, it's our famous event tick. Yes. At each frame per second, it will generate this event for doing the updates. Okay, so we can link these. And now let's push play so that we can check if anything's wrong. And we'll correct anything if we see it. Okay, so let's push play. We're in our scene. Let's press M on the keyboard. There we go. We've got our map, but our icon isn't showing here. Okay, so it should be, but it isn't. So why is that? Let's take a look. Let me just drag this to the middle for you to see it. Okay, so it's just there at the top. I put it there. And now let's push play. Great, M on the keyboard. Okay, so we can't see it. So where did it go? Let's just analyze things to try and work out. We'll use a print string to find the coordinates for the icon. So I'll add a print string just here between these two effects. I'll put a print string here. Okay, so what does it need to show? Well, it needs to show the coordinates coming out from here. Okay, so let's push play. Okay, so look, you see that? So the coordinates are showing. So look where X is. X is on 545. So 545 is right because our plan has 1200 pixels. And remember, we mentioned that things increase or decrease, a positive or negative. Okay, remember that? So we need to tell it. We need to tell Unreal Engine that I want it to calculate this, but using the negative detail. Okay, so I'm not increasing from here to there, but the other way around. So we need to do it differently. So let's open our scale function, and it's going to calculate this, and I want it to be transferred into negative format as well. So we'll multiply this by -1, and it just transforms the signal to negative. Okay, so let's push play now. Okay, so there we go. Now it's -545. And if you notice, our character is on 0. Okay, so that's really helpful to have that error so I can show you how to fix it. So what is what here in the icon? Well, let's just see what's happening. To find out, we need to understand what it's doing. Okay, and here we will notice that this is at 0, so that's why it's not showing. We've seen that X was positive and we sorted X out. So for Y, we can't understand why it's 0. So let's add some print string so that we can understand it. I'll get the print string again here. And let's paint it red to make it pop out so it's different, and put it on for 30 seconds so we see it for longer. And let's put here the scale factor, and let's see if the variable is okay. All right, so let's have a look. See that? The scale factor is 0.069. So let's see the scale in X. And there we go, 0.29. So there's something wrong with this scale, isn't there? So it should be the same or at least similar. So let's see. Let's get the window height. And let's see what is coming from here. So it should be coming from there and divided. Okay, so there you go, it's 100. So that's wrong. It shouldn't be 100. And it's coming from here. But we can see it's doing the calculation. So this 100 is the default variable value. So it's not performing a calculation. So why does that happen sometimes? Well, sometimes what we mentioned with flow control happens in Unreal. And here, everything happens at the same time. So it's calculated in both places practically simultaneously together. So what could be happening is maybe it didn't even calculate anything here, and it already wanted to use that through here, since we're working with open variables sometimes, but not always. Okay, so that could be the problem, but as I say, not always. Now, it won't get the variable from the calculations we set up because of some form of delay. So how can we solve it? Well, I can add a mini delay here, and I think it was created for this specifically. Actually, its default value is 0.2. So it gives me sort of a mini delay to enable this calculation so that they work simultaneously. Okay, so let's play. There we go. Now it's okay. 424. Okay, so it's what's supposed to be in this situation. After this calculation, to get the size that's closer to reality, that's how we needed to set it up. Okay, so let's go back now and just reconnect these to see if it all works. Okay, look, 0.29, it's exactly at size X. So it seems like it's all sorted. so far. So let's push play now. Okay, so now it's where it's supposed to be on the map, right in the middle of the hallway. Okay, so let's walk around. Okay, so it's all right now. So let's get the opposite edge over here, right? Opposite corner here. Okay, so now you can test all around the perimeter. Of course, the position is in the center of the capsule, isn't it? So sometimes the capsule is going to collide, but you can't go any further than that in the character. Let's check if the position is correct everywhere, really. I'll do that. I'll go a bit faster. Okay. So I think that delay really helped us with the calculations, and it's doing the calculations before getting the values, which is really helpful. And even in the extremities of the property, we can see that the scale is matching. So what else is left to do now? Well, you can see that the character doesn't rotate. The icon just stays in the same angle, doesn't it? So let's correct this, and then I think we'll be finished. So I can remove this print string for now. We don't need this anymore. Okay, and plug that back in. Cool. And now I got the location, and now I need to get the character rotation. Okay, so let's think about this. This will really help us though, won't it? So that rotation responds to the position of the character. So we'll pull out from a get player character, get actor rotation. And it'll get the location here and the rotation. And I have my first person here. So we need to make it, make the icon rotate. So what's the parameter for rotation here? Let's have a look. What rotates an image? Render transform. Okay, so we need to change this parameter here, right? So that's what's going to change the angle. So remember that it's render transform. So we need to find a node that changes that. Set render transform angle. That's the exact one we need. Excellent. So I'll link it to the sequence right here, and I'll link the angle over here. No, actually, it's getting a coordinate here, isn't it? So let's split the pin. There we go. And we only need the z-axis. We don't need the x and the y. Okay. We're not going to be doing somersaults, are we? Okay. Right, let's activate this. Press the M. Cool. And now we can move around. See that? It's rotating. Okay. But it's probably not set up for what we need. It's rotating a little bit more, isn't it? And that's because the first person axis is in relation to the image axis. This is a little bit different, which is exactly 90 degrees, isn't it? So we just need to make some adjustments, just a little bit. So we can add a 90 degree to this angle, okay? And I'll get the angle plus 90 degrees to make those adjustments. Okay, so let's check this out. Ah, there we go. So that was the issue, really. That's great. It's rotating a lot better now, isn't it? Now, of course, you can move with the A key on the keyboard to go left, the D key to go right, etc. Use your mouse to move around as well. Perfect. So that's it then, guys. These calculations, yes, they are a little bit more complex, but you can do this, can't you? You've made it this far. And well, in fact, they're not really calculations at all. You know, to assimilate the idea of these scales, we're just using the X and the Y axes, aren't we? Now, I know sometimes we can get confused with them, especially when you realize that Unreal does things in reverse. And the position of the anchor in the widget is important, isn't it? So a couple of things just to be aware of so we don't get confused. But once we work them out, it's fine, isn't it? We just need to identify these problems ahead of time. And hopefully during this class, it's been helpful so you can mitigate or avoid any of those problems when you come to calculate your variables and put together your Minimap widget. So there we go. We finished our Minimap. We'll close this here as well. Disable the screen message again. I don't need them to show. So we've already commented on these, which is great. Let's do one last test now that this widget is done. I'll just go back here. In fact, I'll probably use a better width. Maybe 600 might be okay. And also add some opacity. Let's push play and see how it looks with the new size. Press M. There we go. So probably a better size now for us. Look at that. And you see how easy it is then for us to be able to take this widget blueprint into any other projects. Nice. Now you've done the hard work. You can use this on any other designs or projects that you have. Great. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. Nice. So yeah, very good. So it was worth the effort, wasn't it? Thank you for following along in this course. So it's definitely going to save you a lot of time in the long run. Now that you've done all the hard work putting this together, you can just migrate it and use it on any other projects that you create. Great. Everything's working perfectly now. Even the walls aren't overlapping, which is nice. Now, obviously, you can add different furniture onto your plan as well. That might actually look nice. You can have a more detailed floor plan. Now, depending on the size of the furniture, obviously, you need to think about your spacing on your floor plan. But, feel free to explore with different floor plans and designs. And you'll be able to become more familiar with this awesome blueprint. Now, I must confess, this chapter is quite a complex one because we're working with quite a lot of new things, but I encourage you to go over it again so you can become more familiar with what we went through and more comfortable. So that's it, guys. I hope you like this blueprint. It's a really interesting one. And, yes, it is a little bit more challenging than the ones we've done before, but you've created something beautiful that I know you'll use again and again and again. So keep practicing, okay? Let's finish the class here. And if you have any questions, please do get in touch. If you want to go over a few things, then of course, watch the video again. Okay, so that's it for now. I'll see you in the next class.